AlexSheen has been sharing the importance of a promise with people around the world. He is the founder of Because I Said I Would, an international social movement and nonprofit dedicated to the betterment of humanity through promises made and kept. Alex's story, unfortunately, begins at a tragic point in his young life. On September 4th of 2012, Alex's father died of small cell lung cancer.
My father was an average man. He didn't run marathons, he didn't write books, he wasn't a war hero. He was average, an everyday person, almost unnoticeable, except for one thing. My father was a man of his word. He was there for me when I needed him.
Alex decided to title his father's eulogy, Because I Said I Would.
I don't want to remember my father by the way he died. I want to remember him by the way he lived, by the promises he made to me, his son.
At the funeral, Alex would talk about the importance of a promise. And for the first time, he would hand out what he would call a promise card. A simple idea. Write a promise on the card and give it to someone as a symbol of your commitment and honor. Alex offered to send 10 promise cards to anyone anywhere in the world at no cost to them. The message would go viral. Since September 4th, 2012, Because I Said I Would has distributed over 3.15 million promise cards to over 153 countries around the world, and by request only. Alex is someone who truly honors commitment. He once walked over 240 miles across the entire state of Ohio in just 10 days to fulfill a promise.
One man is walking 240 miles across the state of Ohio for 10 days in honor of Amanda Berry, Gina De Jesus, and Michelle Knight, all three of the Cleveland women who were held captive for 10 years.
He promised to walk to raise awareness of violence against women.
AlexSheen is about an hour from finishing his walk.
When you're in this ditch in life and you want to quit, when you've gone 150 miles and it seems like it's too much, you must ask yourself a question. It's the same question every time when you want to quit. It's very simple. You ask yourself, why? Why did I make this promise? Why is this so important to me and to those I made this commitment to? I believe when you have a strong why, you can be strong. You can put one foot in front of the other and you can make it to the other side.
Alex volunteered at a different nonprofit for 52 weeks in a row. He has delivered disaster relief supplies after Hurricane Sandy, helped clean up after riots in Ferguson, Missouri, and continues to make and keep promises that encourage the betterment of humanity.
AlexSheen.
AlexSheen.
AlexSheen, founder of Because I Said I Would.
Because I Said I Would.
Because I Said I Would.
Alex, nice to have you on.
Alex, how you doing, man? Welcome to the show.
It's all about making promises and keeping them. And there's nobody on this planet, I think, who's better at doing that than AlexSheen.
His charitable promises and social media campaigns have been featured on ABC World News with Diane Sawyer, CNN, The Today Show, The Los Angeles Times, NPR, and many other programs. As an advocate for humanitarian efforts and as an expert in promises, Alex is a recognized speaker around the world. As a 3-time TED Talk presenter, he personally shares the inspirational stories of the Because I Said I Would movement with audiences in over 100 cities each year. Through his life experiences and unique perspective, Alex provides insight for others on how to become better at keeping promises.
And I wonder, when you write a promise on it, is it the card that gives us strength? When we write it down, is it the card that gives us the strength to move on, to get better, to do what's right? Or was that strength always in us? And is this card just a mirror to the hand that wrote it?
You will get 10 promise cards. Start small if you must, but write them down. Keep them in your wallet, post it on your bathroom mirror, whatever you have to do.
Because of his dedication to philanthropy, 100% of Alex's speaking fees are given directly to Because I Said I Would, a 501c3 nonprofit organization. By inviting Alex to speak, you are helping support the impactful charitable work of this organization.
The challenges that we face, they are great. Humanity faces these challenges and you see them on the news. This pain and this suffering. And sometimes the adversity is so great that we start to think that the only thing that will solve it is a miracle solution. Yeah, we just need $1 billion in funding. We need to change the laws, right? We need a new technology to be developed or a miracle cure. A miracle, that's what we need. Well, sometimes we don't need a miracle. Sometimes we just need people to do what they said they were going to do in the first place. To be there for your friends and your family, to fight for a cause through thick and thin. The promises that we make this world. Promettere. Promettere is Latin for a word that we understand at the youngest age, right? When we're kids, if you give us this word, we'll hold on to it and we'll remember it. Promettere is Latin for a word that when we grow older, we use to describe our deepest relationships. We use it to describe love. And when, well, times aren't so good and tragedy finds us, it is a word that we go to find strength. Strength to get better, strength to move on. Promettere. It means promise. A statement telling someone that you will definitely do something or that something will definitely be done in the future. Merriam-Webster Dictionary. Now, you may think of many things when it comes to promises, right? Maybe promises that you've made to others or promises, commitments you have to yourself. But for me, I think about one person, my father. And that's a picture of him. He's kind of got a little belly going there. My dad, unfortunately, wasn't the most handsome guy. I say unfortunately because I've always thought I look exactly like him. You know, Dad wasn't a war hero. You know, he didn't run ultra marathons. He didn't write a book. There's a lot of things Dad wasn't, right? But there was one thing he was. He was good with his promises. If Dad said he was going to do something, it was done. Dad says he's going to go to your lacrosse game at 7 o'clock. 6:59, guess who's in the stands? My father. My dad. On July 4th of 2011, my father was diagnosed with stage 4 small cell lung cancer. You know, initially he responded to chemo pretty well. Tumor got so small I couldn't see in the scans, but that didn't last very long. On September 4th of 2012, my father, he died. I was asked to give his eulogy. I don't know if you've ever lost someone like this, but the image is burned into your memory. But I don't want to remember my father by the way he died. I want to remember him by the way he lived, by the promises he made to me, his son. And so I gave his eulogy. I titled it Because I Said I Would. You see, too often in life we say things like, I'll get to it, or tomorrow. Well, one day there won't be a tomorrow. At his funeral, for the first time, I handed out what I called a promise card. It says, because I said I would on it, and nothing else. It's very simple to use. What you do is you write a promise on the card. Maybe something you've been putting off. You write the promise on the card, and you give it to someone. And you tell them, I'm going to fulfill this promise, and when I do, I get this card back. That card, it belongs to me. I'm going to earn it back. You go, you fulfill your promise, you get your card back, and you keep it as a reminder that you are a person of your word. Well, I decided to make a Facebook page called Because I Said I Would. And I offered to send 10 of these cards to anyone, anywhere in the world, at no cost. Now, that last part was a financially foolish decision. But we'll get to that. This is a picture of the first set of cards that I sent out to 5 people, right? Well, that was that day, because 5, it would grow into 15, into 50, into 500. Since September 4th, 2012, I've sent over 150,000 promise cards to 48 countries around the world. Thank you. Now this makes you think, right? What is it about a promise, right? It's not something that's American or European or Asian. It's not something that's young or old or male or female. There is something about a promise that is elemental to humanity. It's something that we all understand. And as I put this message out there and I sent these cards, I started getting messages back, right? This was actually a small promise, but it was shared with me on Facebook 4 days after my father passed away. A young woman who said, you know, I promised my mom that I would digitize these old photos so they wouldn't be lost with time. But, you know, it's been a month and work gets in the way and training, etc. Well, I read your post and promise kept. I hope to make more posts soon. Or maybe it's a promise to help others. A promise to get over the fear of needles, to donate blood for the first time. Because this woman knew that if she could get over that fear, maybe she could help someone in need through injury or sickness. And she kept that promise in 2013. Or maybe it's a different type of promise, right? Maybe one that's a little more adorable. This is a little girl. She is 4 years old. And she said, I promise I will sleep in my room, right? To get over the fear of the dark. And you know, I know this is a TED Talk. We've got a lot of academics in the room, and you're all pointing out that she spelled promise wrong. But she's 4 years old. We got to let her slide. And so I think about this card every day. And what is it about writing it down, your goal? Well, when you look at studies like one coming from the Dominican University of California, Dr. Gail Matthews, a clinical psychologist, she did a study on written goals. She had one group that simply stated their goals and another group that wrote them down. Goal attainment rates increased 42%. Why is that? And that was actually just typing the goals down. You know, I could cite other studies from the University of Washington or Indiana University about handwriting and cognitively how that helps us remember things. And when it comes to a promise, well, it's important that it's top of mind. You see, these promises, they started out as cute and little, and I guess just like life, they grew into something a little heavier. This is a promise card that was shared on Instagram, #BecauseISaidIwould. This young man said, I'm 23 years old. I have been doing heroin for almost 9 years, since I was 15. On July 29th of 2013, Portland police found me dead in my girlfriend's truck. They revived me back to life. It is at that moment I realized I could not fight this battle alone, and so I made this promise not only to myself but to my family, that I would go into rehab and that I would get help. He said, I have a child on the way, and I hope that in 20 years I can tell him or her about this promise, a promise that I made to get clean. My hopes are high. You see, when you get messages like this, when you see them on social media, promises between soldiers to keep each other safe, promises from cancer survivors saying, I'm going to get through treatment. Well, you think about your life and its path. That's what I did. I was a corporate strategy lead at a large software company. I really liked my job there, but I decided that my life now had a different purpose. I needed to find a way to tell my boss that it was my time to go. Well, that way came to me in the form of a letter. This letter. It was dropped off on my desk at work. There's nothing written on it, just Alex handwritten. You open it up, you see the letter, there's no name. And I want to read that to you. Hi, Alex. I've been keeping up with your blog. Because I said I would has really helped me through a rough patch. There have been a lot of times where I didn't think life was worth living. And I almost took my life. Almost. I'm getting stronger every day, and a lot of that strength comes from a few promise cards I've written. I have a lot of people who care about me. I'm a very, very lucky person. It took me a lot to realize that I should be alive, that I do have a purpose. I'm not sure if I would even be around if it wasn't for you and your organization. As I read this letter at my desk that day, I wondered who it was, and I cried. But this letter gave me strength. Strength to make a decision I knew I had to make in the first place. And so I would use this letter to explain to my boss that I had to do something else. I went into her office and said, "Boss, I just have something to tell you, but before we get started, can you just read this?" She said, "Sure, Alex." She pulls the letter out of the envelope, unfolds it, reads it for maybe, 15 seconds, something like that. She looks up at me and she says, "Alex, this letter, I don't know how you got it, but this letter is from my daughter. My daughter wrote you this letter. It's her handwriting. These are the envelopes on our kitchen table. This is about her. This is my daughter." Her daughter is 14 years old, suffers through depression. They were using the cards as a family. Somehow she found her way to where I worked. She snuck into the mailroom, dropped it off. The letter got to me, and that is how I quit my job. And from that day on, when I think about the mission of Because I Said I Would, to better humanity through the importance of a promise, I started making my own promises to help others. That when Hurricane Sandy struck this state, when there were people in need, the next week I drove through the night from Cleveland, Ohio to deliver disaster relief aid. That when I heard about some kids in Nevada who had been diagnosed with cancer, that they couldn't go to Disneyland because they couldn't afford it, well, I said, I'm going to change that. On March 21st, I delivered 100 tickets to Disneyland for those children so that they could go, so that their family members could go, so they could have a moment together as a family. I live in Cleveland, Ohio. When I heard about 3 women who live 6 miles away from my house, when I heard that they were tortured for 10 years by the hands of Ariel Castro, I made a promise to Amanda Berry, Gina De Jesus, and Michelle Knight, that I would give them 10 days of my life for the 10 years that they suffered, to raise awareness for the victims of sexual violence that are across the world and in this room. I promised that I would give those 10 days, and to raise that awareness, I walked over 245 miles across the entire state of Ohio in less than 10 days. I ended that walk at 2207 Seymour Avenue, the house of their imprisonment, and I hugged Gina De Jesus' mother. You see, since September 4th, 2012, I have thought about the importance of a promise every day, and I've seen these messages. But on August 9th, a message was sent to me through Facebook that I will never forget, a message that you may know about. This was a message from a young man who said, I want to join your mission to better humanity. He talked about the night of June 22nd, 2013, when he got intoxicated, blacked out drunk. He got into a car and attempted to drive home. He struck a vehicle and he killed a man. He said that guilt was insurmountable, that he now needed to live life for 2 people. That's what he owed. Since August 9th, for about a month, I got to know Matthew Cordell. I wanted to know more about him. Is this someone who can truly keep his word? And as we got to try to understand how we could convince people not to drink and drive, he landed on the idea of recording a confession video. At this point, Matthew had no charges pressed against him, although he was the primary suspect. As we filmed this video and we're about to release it on September 3rd, I told Matt, you've talked to your lawyers. You understand that this is, if self-preservation was your mission, this is not the way to do it. I just want you to understand the consequences of releasing this video. You don't have to do this if you do not want to. You don't owe it to me. We were sitting at that kitchen table and he looked at me and he said, Alex, just press the button. We released that video to YouTube, and in 10 days, it received over 2 million views across the world. 7 days from that posting, Matthew would be arrested. He would then be indicted, arraigned. And today, this morning at 10 o'clock, Matthew Cordell was sentenced to prison. He kept his promise, a promise to take responsibility for what he's done and to live a life discouraging people from the senseless act of drinking and driving. You know, I often look at this card and I wonder, when you write a promise on it, is it the card that gives us strength? When we write it down, is it the card that gives us the strength to move on, to get better, to do what's right? Or was that strength always in us? And is this card just a mirror to the hand that wrote it? As the so-called leader of Because I Said I Would, there is a quote I think about every single day. It's very simple. It goes like this. You can pretend to care, but you can't pretend to show up. Thank you.